Hello everyone, the end of the regular season is approaching in the NHL and more teams are on the list of those who, under no circumstances, will make it to the playoffs this season. Moreover, among them there are clubs that we won't see in relegation games for a few more years. In this issue we will talk about the 5 teams that, in our opinion, have the greatest chance of being stuck outside the playoff zone for the next 3-4 seasons. This summer, Chicago was going to make a big comeback in the Stanley Cup. Making several big hawkish exchanges were goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury and star defender Seth Jones. Chicago was counting on the fact that with the return of Captain Jonathan, strengthening weak positions would be enough to get into the playoffs. However, during the season it was confirmed that the captain is no longer the motivated hockey player he was before. The level of the captain's game has dipped sharply and the Canadian does not pay off his contract. It would seem that even now he could get injured again in quotation marks and quietly end his career without waiting for the summer of 23 when his agreement expires, which would allow him to free up space on the payroll, but even these $10.5 million will not help Chicago return to the fight. The only driving force behind the Hawks is Patrick Kane. Even if Farrell does not leave the team next season after the expiration of the contract, the American will not solve all the problems of the Blackhawks. Chicago has no goalkeepers, no defensive line and no offensive depth. For $10-15 million, this cannot be done, and Patrick Kane is not eternal and is already at a decent age for a player. It's time for Chicago to get ready for a real rebuild and not be limited to half measures until the resources of the peaks and avenues are completely depleted, otherwise the return will be delayed for many years. The exchange in the deadline went beyond the peaks and prospects partly confirms that the management has come to terms with the need for a complete restructuring. Chicago should have the level of the Central Division where young strong Colorados and Minnesota gathered, powerful St. Louis and a strong Winnipeg in the current state. Such rivals cannot be outplayed and it is better to think about the future in order to seriously return to the race for the Stanley Cup in 3 or 5 years. After last season in Philadelphia, they correctly identified their main problem. The game at their own goal and the defensive line. The team looked really weak, needed changes, but the management approached the implementation of the plan to strengthen the game at their own goal somehow completely illogically. Instead of looking for versatile defenders and homebodies, the Flyers general manager relied on attacking players. Rasmus Ristolainen, who was never reliable in defense, was knocked out at a high price. Ryan Ellis from Nashville was consistently strong only in attack, and defense failures were covered by the depth of Nashville's defensive line. Philadelphia lost many high picks in the draft after such a summer of market action. Further exacerbated their main weaknesses after a third of the season. It became clear that the Philadelphia season would be lost and the team would need to be rebuilt. Another key management mistake is the failed drafts from 16 to 18, that is, in 3 seasons. Philadelphia had 5 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks, but of all these picks, only Joel Farabee has at least some use. When a team fails drafts, but wants to be afloat, then you have to work in the market. The general manager of the Pilots often participated in auctions for players, which led to overpayments and a completed payroll without the necessary efficiency. At the end of the championship 21-22, the team comes up without big stars in the roster, unpromising youth and with a lot of problems in the payroll. Given the strength of the competition in the division, this does not bode well for the team in the near future. Changes in San Jose have been asking for a long time, since the team has not reached the playoffs for 3 years, and most importantly, there are no options for how to fix it quickly. The Sharks general manager left his post after 19 years and this move already implies big changes. However, it will be extremely difficult for the new general manager of the team to fix everything very quickly as Wilson left a lot of problems for his successor, the main one being 3 defenders on very expensive and long-term contracts. Carlson, Flash drives and Burns for 3 take $26.5 million. The players are 31, 35 and 37 years old respectively and their best years are behind them. It is unrealistic to exchange defenders on such contracts, which makes it difficult to strengthen their squad or at least start a full-fledged restructuring. San Jose ends up dangling between playoff zones and high draft picks, which is the worst possible outcome. Another problem that is left to the new general manager is the almost complete absence of top prospects. This also complicates the acceleration of the team's exit to a new level. In pursuit of a supposed playoff chance, he threw spades and prospects to the last, which devastated his own reserves in the lower rounds that remained with the Sharks. No good choices were made. There are players on contracts around which you can build a team in the future, but given all the problems of Sharks, this will take time. The Sharks got a little easier when, with no payroll penalties, they managed to get out of $7 million Australian dollars per season contract with Evander Kane. Theoretically, a trick with an unexpected end to the career of one of a pair of Burns flash drives for health reasons could speed up the restructuring. There are no other ways to speed up rebuild. After a successful rookie season in Vegas, the next rookie team was expected to do something similar. After all, the expansion draft rule hadn't changed, and Seattle had a great opportunity to form a strong roster for the Kraken. The general managers of the NHL club specially left available many stars who were on heavy contracts. Of course, that Francis could not take all of them, but he passed by almost all options. There were illogical choices among young players as well. Many justified the weak expansion draft by the fact that Francis was saving money for free agents, which were enough on the market, but even after all the signings, there were no stars and leaders in the Kraken roster who could lead the team. These signings even more likely went to the detriment. Seattle already has two potentially bad contracts for years to come. Admitting his mistakes on expansion and the futility of the current lineup, Francis got rid of many by the deadline for a very large number of picks in the coming years, but it will take several seasons to build a new team. There is practically no youth of their own, since Seattle had only one draft, and it takes time for the roster to implement picks and sum up newcomers. So Seattle will be like any new NHL club in the late 90s and early 2000s for a long time and smoothly grow until its first entry into the Cup playoff Stanley. It would seem that Arizona has been in restructuring for many years and the Coyotes gathered young people, traded players for the main roster, but this culminated in reaching the first round of the playoffs of the 19-20 season, after which the team again started a complete reformatting of the roster. The catalyst for such an early departure into a new restructuring was the violation by the club's management of the rules for testing players who were just about to enter the draft. The club was punished and took the draft picks in the first round of 21 and the second round of 20. However, the loss of these picks was not the main reason for such a cardinal decision for the lined-up teams. Such a failure would be insulting but not critical. The main problem is that Arizona did not have the depth of the roster and the reserve own youth to compete in a strong division. Poor draft picks meant the team never got a strong first center. First, Arizona made a mistake in the top 5 elections, which were implemented poorly. The team's only successful draft came in 2016 when Clayton Keller and Jacob Chychrun were taken. Another reason why Arizona will be stuck in the new season for a long time just in them. Both have gone through many years of restructuring with the team and almost immediately plunge into a new motivation in young players to spend another 5 years playing with no prospects for a little result. Back in the fall, both announced their desire to leave if Keller had a strong season and spoke less and less about the exchange. Then Chychrun was determined to leave the team in the summer. There will be a turn for the defender and Arizona is likely to lose the leader of its defense. Coyotes don't have a lot of top young. The main team leaders look towards other clubs and want an exchange. The strength of the Central Division also does not allow for quick success. The only one Arizona can compete with now is Chicago, and that competition will be who can get out of perestroika faster. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. See you on the channel for now.